11 o'clock. You know what that means. Books and Bars time. Welcome. How you guys doing? Hope you're doing well. Welcome again. If you've never been here before, there are some instructions that I've put in the chat about how to do this. But David is also co-hosting with me tonight, so he will be watching the chat and adding to our discussion with that. You can participate by raising your blue hand. There's a button at the bottom, and then I will call on you, unmute you, and make a question, ask your comment. So I'll show you an example. Like if I had my blue hand up and David called on me, I would say, hey, I thought this book was great. I just finished it a couple minutes ago. I listened to the audio book on 2x speed so I could be done in time for Books and Bars. Maybe there's someone that I'm describing. And if you're that person, raise your hand. So I would love to have someone kick us off tonight, tell us what they thought of the book, especially if they have the hottest, freshest take. Maybe they just finished Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. I'll be posting some information about the author's bio in the chat. And also, like I said, some more notes on Books and Bars. So watch the chat. And if you don't want to talk on video, you can always just use the chat and maybe, you'll warm up and we'll get you in there. So there's a little information on Kiley Reid. Here's a little bit more. And she lives in Philadelphia, much like our characters in this book. So did anyone just finish it? Does anyone want to kick us off? Maybe someone that's done Books and Bars before, knows how to raise their hand, can show us how to do it with their blue hand. Love to hear from you. I see Liz Otteson has her hand up. I would love to unmute Liz and have her talk to us. Liz, are you with us?
I am with you. I finished not quite an hour and a half ago. So it's very fresh in my mind. It was one of those books that I wanted to skip work and everything else, including my own children, to keep reading, but managed to get a few things done in the last week. You want like my first impression?
Sure.
Just juicy, great twists and turns, and a whole mess of characters that they were so flawed, and I tried not to get too personally invested, but there was really one character that I really loved. So, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Wait, did you say there wasn't one that you really loved? There's one. Do you want to identify that character right now?
That would be Briar.
All right.
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting? One of the things I found interesting about these characters was that Kiley Reid doesn't initially identify necessarily if they're African-American, white, Hispanic, and you kind of find out Latina, as you go. And I think she puts you in a position then of maybe you had an assumption about this character and then it changed, or maybe you were right or wrong about that assumption. And so I'm especially interested in, as we talk about the characters, if there were any characters that, maybe you thought identified as something else or wasn't who they thought you thought they were. And if that changed over the course of your reading. So does anyone else have a hand to get us going tonight? Thank you, Liz. Liz, is this your first time joining us on video, or were you in one of the? Yes, I thought so. Okay, good to see you again on video. Thanks for being here. I know you are a veteran of our in-person events, which someday they may return, but we don't know. So for now, we're on video, and I'll be sharing all of our plans through almost the rest of the year with anyone that wants to hear them tonight. So anyone else have a fresh take on the book that they want to go with, or anything about the author now that they see, or any questions about how we do this? A lot of information in the chat. Hi, David. David's our co-host tonight. David, one of the powers of the co-host is you actually can't raise your hand. So it seems like a weakness, but you can jump in whenever you want.
Right.
You can be sort of like Andy Richter and just comment from your jukebox there. What do you got, David?
I didn't finish the book. I stopped at about 80 pages in. I couldn't handle, and I can't even remember the mom's character when she was so looking down at the people in Pennsylvania and just being really snooty about them. I was like, I can't read any more of this. I gave it one more chapter and I was like, I'm done. This is just
Wow. So Elise was such a deterrent for you to even finish it. You didn't even want to see if she gets her comeuppance or
Nope.
what happens to her.
No,
Well,
she
maybe
was
you'll
that
find out.
unlikable. Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll find out tonight.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
And,
I'm interested to hear what everybody
okay.
else found.
Yeah.
And,
You know, a leak certainly created a lot of very cringe-worthy moments. There were a lot of times when, you know, you just couldn't believe it. Like that, you know, maybe you think it, but you don't say it or you don't act on that, and you just couldn't even believe some of the stuff. But I don't think she's the only one. And I think that it's interesting that over the course of the book, you may have actually, if you read on, not necessarily side with her, but see some of her perspective, at least at some points, or flip-flop back and forth between, you know, who you currently agree with on a topic or not. I see Majel has her hand up.
yes.
Majel, can I unmute you? Talk to us, Majel.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes my headphones don't work. I did just finish this like at 6:59 again, Jeff, but I was like, no, I can't finish his hand again. I don't know what's happening to me. Why in the pandemic am I not finishing our books? What's wrong with me? But I finished it, so I'm really sitting with a lot, but I'm smiling so wide because that ending line was so sick. Like I felt, oh my God, I just felt like Reid brought like the story to me, because I had been reading this and just like the cringe moments were so hard. I totally feel like just wanting to stop. I wanted to stop at a lot of places because I was like, I do not want to hear from this Alex person again. Like I just can't. There's so many weird stuff. There's like Get Out vibes. There's the Help vibes. I just like, I can't. But I kept going with it as the drama kept mounting, and as she obviously shared the video. Hope I'm not spoiling it if you haven't finished it. And so I kept reading, and then I felt, and I was like sitting there just like, God, Reid, why are you, that's the author's name, right? Reid. I was like, why are you making me read this? Why? But that like ending line, I felt like really kind of brought it home for me of, oh, I got to read it because it was just so good.
Do it.
Can I get it as quickly as I can? Let me see. My ebook reader is a little slow, even though I say support the library. Sometimes their ebook readers just go a little bit slow. Some days, Amira would carry the dread that if Briar ever struggled to find herself, she'd probably just hire someone to do it for her. And I was like, okay, thank you, author. You've given it to me. Like, you're telling this story of a woman using another person to understand herself better. And you're telling it like in such a novel and interesting way, by bringing in just like all of the factors around power and privilege and race and wealth and socioeconomic status and like generational factors around the care of like having health care for your job, and that being one of the number one determinants of like what job you're getting or not. And so then it really hit home, and I understood the book a lot more, like just with that like final line. So 4 out of 5 stars for sure, or maybe even higher, especially as you all share your comments. I really enjoyed reading it. Couldn't have put it down.
Well, thanks, Majel. Thanks for finishing it on time. I often think that, you know what, a lot of people join our conversation, even if they haven't finished it. Of course, the ending, you know, will be out there for you. But I do feel you can do it, and you could finish these books sooner. And the thing about that is then you get to sit with it for a little while, and then you can be like me and you can listen to podcasts with the author. You can read a little bit more, and you might think one way and you might change it a couple, and you can have that time with it. Now you get to sit with that after our discussion. But it's nice that, you know, if you get the book done earlier, you have that. It's something to look forward to. That's an incentive for you. If you can work out your schedule, then you just have that your extra time to think about that great last line and other things like that. But hey, I'm just happy you got it done at 6:59 and you're here and your headset works. So, you know, those are the major things. So thanks, Majel. I see Kara's got her hand up. Kara, can I unmute you? Ms. Berger, if you're nasty.
Yes.
Can you talk to us?
I was gonna say I finished like every Books and Bars book like a month at least early, and then I come into these and I'm like, I don't know anyone's name.
That's the other problem. That's definitely another problem, and that's part of why I have to do a lot of refresher, research and stuff.
I'm at the whims of the library though. I get the books when I get them, and so what can I do? I thought David's comment was very funny because I also hated Alex immediately, but I was kind of like, so this is Harry Potter as if we also got to read Voldemort's perspective. And like, you know, that's not like a bad thing to get the villain's like perspective throughout the piece. Like I thought like her parts were really interesting, but also super cringeworthy. But I thought like the author did such a good job depicting like this type of white person, and I think like having it be from her perspective is maybe like going to be illuminating like for a lot of white people. Even like some of the like self-conscious ways that Alex acted, like I can't help but be like, oh yeah, I've had those moments, and then you have to like look outside of that like awkwardness and be like, just not everything is about you, you know, like take a step back. So I thought it was really great that we had Alex's perspective, because I think like her point about all of the stuff she was making wouldn't have been as clear. The question I had was why we got Alex's perspective, but why we didn't get Kelly's, because to me, they were setting up like such a contrast between like these two different kinds of white person, and how both of them like can be extremely toxic. And I think like, I don't know if anyone felt this way, like as you were reading it, you were like, Kelly is better. Because I was kind of always waiting, like every time Kelly did something, I was like scrutinizing it, because I've met a lot of white people like Kelly too, who like think they're cool and with it, but who are also like using people of color. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of thought like we are getting such a pointed criticism of Alex, and I do think Kelly gets criticized in the novel, but why didn't we get like his perspective at all?
Okay, couple great points here. I want to hit all of them. First of all, excellent earrings. I hope you all voted today, or maybe you voted. Maybe you voted a couple weeks ago by mail. You know, that's great, as long as no one stole your mailbox, as that happened in Minneapolis recently. Somebody just took a mailbox the other day. Hopefully, there weren't too many ballots in there. Number two, the perspectives and why we didn't get Kelly. So I think what Kiley Reid really wanted to do was to get into just these two main characters and to not give maybe Kelly that much power or credit, that he isn't on the level of importance, if you will. And what we get, instead of getting his perspective, is we do get that resolution where we find out that, yeah, he didn't share the note. He didn't invite Robbie and the other high schoolers to the house. And Alix hid that fact. So she knew, she found out, you know, with the locker later, that she was wrong. He didn't do that. But what we do also get is some of the friends are kind of saying, hey, you know, this guy is, why are all of his friends black? He only dates black women, that sort of thing. And then when she sees him at the end, once again, like with another black woman, he kind of feels like, or, you know, she kind of looks at it like, of course, you know, that's his, you know, that's his way of, you know, almost, it's a different kind of racism that is mentioned. So I just think that Reid wasn't putting him quite on that level, and that's maybe why we didn't get his. And then the only sort of thing we get is when we find out, at least, you know, he didn't do that. He didn't do the thing that he was accused of, but he does these other things, and it wasn't right. Like, I didn't want them to end up together. I didn't think that was going to be a realistic or proper ending. I thought that they had to go their separate ways, and she had to, you know, it was more about her on her own. And if we got more of his perspective, it might have given him too much power. I don't know, just an idea.
I also wonder if we had his perspective, it would have been too obvious that he was just kind of a douchebag.
Right, it would have taken away maybe some of the mystery. Yeah, and you would have felt it maybe too soon and not wondered, you know, do I prefer which side over the other, that sort of a thing. I feel like there's something else. Oh, the library. If the library lets you down, I get it. The books are popular. They're hard to get. I have a brand new thing. Thank you for giving me my segue to talk about it. I can't believe it took this long. We've long supported Books and Bars by buying books from Moon Palace and Subtext and previous Majors and Quinn and stuff like that. And that's great. And we can still support those places. There's a new-ish kind of website that is sort of the anti-Amazon. It's called bookshop.org. I shared the link. We have a shop. We have a storefront. And I have placed all of our upcoming books in there in a list. So you can just look at that. And if you want, you can buy it from here, from this bookshop link. And Books and Bars will get a percentage, and then either they share all the rest of the percentages with indie bookstores in your area, or you can say specifically, I want Moon Palace or I want Subtext to get the percentage. And it's pretty cool if you haven't checked it out. And I also have listed, for a lot of us being newer to Books and Bars, not me, but you, we've been doing this for 16 years. I went through all 16 years of our books and I picked out, everyone always asks me about past favorites. I just started putting them in the store for sale, and I came up with 70 of them, which, you know, we've done about 225, 230. So I only went with like a third of them. I took my top third, and they're also for sale. So if anyone wants to go back and see things that I personally thought we liked as a group, or I especially liked, they're in there. And then if you really want to get adventurous, I have ideas for 2021, which you're taking a chance because we might not pick it. But I would say these are pretty good bets. And if you buy it and like it and tell me, hey, that's probably going to move it up on the list, and we probably will do it then. But they're just books that are on my list that I think might be worth checking out. So there's 3 lists. And if you just go to thisbookshop.org /shop/books and bars, you don't have to wait for the library. You don't have to wait for it to be shipped from a local store. And I got to tell you something, I'm not turning my back on Subtext or Moon Palace. This idea came from Matt at Subtext. Matt sent me this and said, you should set this up. This is a great thing to do for you, and you can still support Subtext, but you know, you should be getting something while we're in this strange time right now. So thank you for my long advertisement there for the new thing. I'm always promoting the same things, but tonight I got 2 new things. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because I'm putting all of these videos on YouTube. They're edited slightly, but you can see our past chats, and buy our books from the bookshop. Pete O'Grady, can I unmute you? Talk to me, Pete O'Grady. Are you with us, Pete?
I'm here.
Hi, buddy.
Hey.
Pete, look out. There's a giant mammoth behind you.
I know. The Bell Museum. I was supposed to go there this year. I loved the book. Because the writing was so good. I mean, yes, and I totally agree that the cringeworthiness of the characters was challenging. But and I lived in Philly for 8.5 years before coming to Minnesota. So all the things they were talking about are just that's where I lived. So that was kind of fun for me. And I was laughing about Kensington, especially that scene where Alix brought her kids to Kensington. That really cracked me up. Like, what the hell? People got to be turning their heads of what's she doing here? And then, I think that the thing that I really liked Amira personally, because one thing I appreciated is I remember this for myself. In your 20s, not knowing what you want to do when you grow up, when you're one of those people, that part is kind of hard. And I think she wrote that very well. That how she was debating, you know, but the thing she knew, she loved taking care of Briar, and she, you know, she was doing the person of color thing, putting up with all the white tropes and stuff, and which I thought the author wrote brilliantly. That was really funny. Wine time, and and it really goes in a deep dive on the various kinds of institutional racism that people aren't aware of, that they walk with. Like, I can't be racist because I'm this, but then meanwhile, I think she went overboard on Alix and her, you know, that, hey, I'm doing you a favor, but I don't know, the point needed to be made anyway. So I was pretty cool with it. But I don't know, I just really loved how it ended. I'm glad with you, like you, I was really glad that it didn't end up Kelly winning over Alix. That it was just, it's interesting that both Alix and Kelly actually knew each other. They nailed each other perfectly, and neither was good enough for Amira. And then the one who ended up being the best for Amira was Amira herself, and I thought that was really cool. So if I looked at it as kind of a personal growth story, and for a first-time author, this is just such a I give a first book a lot of leeway, but this is just knocking out of the park for a first book. She writes great characters. I really look forward to reading the body of work that she'll produce. I hope she does more.
Thanks, Pete. I'm glad you liked it and her style so much. One of the things I read was she initially started this as an epistolary novel, and we were getting, because of the way that Alix writes all of those letters, we were not only getting, you know, her letter writing style, but we were getting like journal entries or blogs or in other ways from a couple of the other characters, and it wasn't working, and she needed something, some kind of event to get us all into it so we understand what the racist situation is here. And that's when she came up with What Happens in the Supermarket. And she knew that she wanted to do something about the dynamic between a mother, a babysitter, and a child, and how, you know, if, you know, the mom maybe isn't the best mom and there's a really strong bond between the babysitter and the child, and they're of, you know, one's black and one's white, what would happen? That's kind of the start of it. And it started with letters. The letter thing didn't work. And then she found this idea for the big inciting incident in the supermarket. So we got a lot of hands. I'm excited, going to get to you guys. But anyone that doesn't have a hand yet, unless we cover it well in all these hands, think in terms of that first thing and why that happened, and why Amira didn't want to share the video, and what you would have done in this situation, and anything about that, or if you've ever been in a situation like that. One of our icebreakers tonight was, have you ever been, you know, in a bad babysitting situation, whether you caused it or another babysitter did, or maybe you have good babysitting experience, and it shaped you. I think a lot of people don't give enough credit to maybe the babysitters that helped raise them. They can often be forgotten if they're not officially termed a nanny and wearing a uniform or something like that. So Kevin, are you with us? Can you unmute yourself and talk to us, Kevin?
Yeah, so on that point, I thought the character trait where she didn't want to release the video, and also just in general didn't really have an online presence, I think speaks a lot to sort of how she valued her privacy a lot. And I wish that's one part that I really wish had been fleshed out more, because that did feel a little weaker and more there to drive the plot forward rather than to inform her. So yeah, I wish more time had been spent on that and her motivations for that. And I guess
for her motivations for wanting the privacy and not having an online presence and stuff like that.
In general, not just specifically the video, but sort of that part of her personality.
Yep.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was the dialogue in this is really expressive. A lot of things are written out phonetically or with like varying punctuation. The dialects switch a lot of the time too. And I was wondering what people thought of that, because it definitely contrasts with Conversations with Friends, our last book, which was sort of very formal the whole way through. And I think it worked really well in this one, aside from a few sentences that just didn't track. But I thought the dialogue felt really natural, and that was a strong point.
But Kevin, do we have quotation marks this time?
We finally do.
Okay, so I'm glad you bring it back to comparing it to Conversations with Friends, because I think that was another one initially where a lot of us questioned the likability of these characters, and then, you know, do we want to, you know, read these characters that we don't like with what David said. And I love that you mentioned the dialogue and the way it was written, because that is one of the things that Kiley Reid has also said it's her favorite thing to write, and she really felt she took the time to nail the dialogue and to get that just right. And she talked a lot about how she had jobs similar to some of the jobs presented here that the young women have, and that she had to do code switching a lot, where she would be a receptionist in an office, and, you know, she would speak a different way, you know, to not threaten any of the African-American people around her. And then maybe she could speak, you know, the way she wanted to, or a different way with her friends. And she's talked about getting the dialogue right, and this aspect of code switching in her own life. But I do think that it's really interesting, because they are two books that do concentrate heavily on friendships among young people and a lot of discussion between those people. And so to Kevin's point, if anyone has anything on that, comparing those two. I'm excited though, because Tony's got his hand up, and I know Tony's got his own, I think he's got a mini Books and Bars going, if we could see the video here. I think he gathered his own version at his place. Tony, I'm unmuting you. Can you show us your mini Books and Bars?
Hi. Can you hear?
Hey guys.
Hi.
So I think I'm Tony, Minneapolis. Are we still doing that with name and where?
We can. I mean, we can see your name on there, but like, tell us who's with you, because their names aren't coming up and we can barely see them.
This is Robert and Melanie, and we pretty much always
That's
come
right.
to bars, and well, not always, but you know, we're there a lot.
You guys see them, they sit near the front at Moon Palace. Sometimes they sit on the stage at Moon Palace because they're so late. But I love them, and I love that they're with us tonight and that they've gathered together, and they look like they're somewhat socially distant in their backyard. I like it.
Outside. So I also liked the book. I thought it was, for me, I would call it a hilarious satire on woke white people. Which is great. Like, that's fun to say out loud. Like, I just thought about the whole, like, yeah, you know, upon everybody's journey, if you're really working at it, you should have one moment where you're like, oh my God, did I just really? And this book was just full of that, which, so Jeff, what, Jeff? Is that the guy? Wait. Kelly, sorry. wait.
I haven't even
No.
finished it. Kelly.
I think it's funny that we're talking, or we at least mentioned that, you know, well, he didn't have a very big part. And like, how many women in that situation would you be like, oh, she didn't really have a very big part? I didn't, like, it was, I just, you know, why didn't he have more voice? Because the last thing we need is another white male in a book about women.
Boom.
Yeah, anyways, it was cringeworthy and great, and the only part I thought was weird, and I maybe want an explanation, is why didn't Amira have a social media presence? Like, she's 26 years old. How'd she dodge that bullet that nobody dodges? And she had a cell phone.
So Tony, I think that your point really piggybacks well on Kevin's, and I think Kevin brings up a good idea why that maybe this helps show that how much of a person that values their privacy that she is. And so another reason why she would absolutely not want that video released is she values her privacy so much. And but like to Kevin's point, we don't really get the why necessarily of that, but we just take it then, and maybe that's a clue as to that. If this person is 26 and doesn't have a social media presence, oh, this is another way of showing, this is a really strong way of showing maybe how much they value their privacy. Because that's, you know, that's one of the most shocking things now, if you can't find someone online or, you know, dredge up things about them. So, but if anyone else has other ideas about why or what that means, what they were trying to say by not having that, or if we missed something in the book, feel free to tell us. But good to see you guys. I love it. We should, you know what? Oh man, you're an inspiration. I want all of us, you know, next time, let's see if we can get, you know, this fall, we'll all be sitting outside in like a pile of leaves. It'll be great.
Jeff,
so, all right.
Jeff,
yeah, David, what do you got?
Liz in the chat, she thought that part of her aversion of not having social media was that maybe she didn't feel like she was as accomplished as her peers. And so she wanted to stay off of social media because of that reasoning. I thought that was interesting.
I think that's a good point too. I think, you know, we definitely get a sense that Amira does compare herself to, you know, her friends and where she is at this point in her life. And it's getting to be that, like, now you're past the midpoint of your 20s, and there's a lot of talk of what are your goals? How come, you know, you're just a babysitter, and, you know, you have this part-time job at the Green Party, but, you know, what do you really want to do? Like, kind of that other people are pushing her and she's feeling that pressure. And when she, you know, goes to a friend's place and they have a much nicer place, even though we find out, you know, it's because it's supplemented by the parents perhaps, or there's like a wealthy family involved in some way. But yeah, I think that's a great point, Liz. Angela.
Yeah,
Are you with us? Hi.
you just muted me. I unmuted myself.
Oh, sorry.
I have a lot of thoughts. One is that I have a lot of pity for Alex, and not because I feel bad for her, but I just kind of pity her mental stance on the fact that she is such a victim in everything all the time. And how exhausting does that have to be a victim and to feel like because I'm a victim, I have to save the world, even though she's not really truly a victim. And the fact that later on it comes out that she knew he never got the note, but that she's basically lived in that lie forever is just so incredibly frustrating. Um, I loved Amira, and part of the reason I love that is because even as someone who will be 40 this year, she's like, I know I should do this, but I'm going to put this off. I'm like, I still do that sometimes, you know, and she's really living that I want to better myself, but I can't find the time to do this. And it's not because she's overly busy. She just sometimes is so overwhelmed, I think, with what has to come. And then from the social media standpoint, I actually have a lot of people that I know that are younger. They're like, I just don't want to leave a social media trace, so I don't have it. I want to know people one on one, and that's ranging, you know, from age 25 to 40, that are just like, you know, I'd rather know people one on one. If people want to know what's going on, they can know me. And from the release of the video, there were a few times she alluded to what was I wearing? What does that look like to public? And as a person of color, even though I was the victim, what are they thinking? And that comes all out after the video is released. And some of the things people are saying, it's like, well, she doesn't look like she was dressed babysitting. Well, and there are people that did not give her the benefit of the doubt. And that's probably part of what she was worried about was look at all of this stuff that there's some people that are like, yeah, we just want to rally behind you. And some of them were the Kellys where I think I'm being really, you know, forward and everything, and I'm forward thinking, and I want to make sure that you get what you want. She's like, I just want to move on and for the world to get better. It's not about me. It's about the change in the world. But, you know, she didn't want to be put on the spot. She's like, we're going to move past it. It is what it is. So those are my thoughts on the characters.
Thanks, and congrats on turning 40 this year. I'm excited for you. You're going to get all the references. All of my jokes will start to be funny finally for you. I'll move from just my dad jokes being not funny to actually Jeff's kind of funny. I got to give props in the chat. I see there is some debate about how we're pronouncing Alex's name. To be clear, from the audio book, when she was in high school, it's pronounced Alex, and it's Oleeks. Oleeks is how she pronounces it when she's in Philly and New York. But Kara said, no, it's just pronounced Karen. Oh, poor, so you know what? Karens have just such a hard time. I have so many friends named Karen, and that name has just taken such a hit. It's become such a sad meme for the Karen. So if you're a Karen and you're sick of it, raise your hand, and I will call on you absolutely first. Any Karen, I don't care how you spell it. I'd love to hear from a Karen tonight, or an Aleeks, or an Alex. But right now I got Caitlin Fellows. Caitlin, I'm unmuting you. Can you talk to us?
Yeah, so no one's really doing the icebreaker, but I have had, I live out in Washington now. When I first moved out here from Minneapolis, just over my first summer here, kind of cover the moving costs, I took a job as a nanny for a family. And I have like so many little creepy, weird things that happened that in accumulation are just kind of disgusting. And I can't tell you one thing, but it should have just been like the red flag where I should have just like hightailed it out of there was like when the mom's showing me around and she's explaining to me how they have one sponge to wipe the dishes in the sink and one sponge for the counters. You can't mix the two up. And like coming from a childhood where I ate a lot of dirt, I just probably should have gotten out of there then. But you know, I was thinking a lot about kind of that first question of why we didn't hear about Kelly, and really beautiful things about this book is it really does get at a lot of super nuanced faces that racism. And one of the things that really stood out to me about this book is that it really does a good job to highlight the survivor complex that a lot of white women tend to have. And, that for me was a huge theme of the book. Throughout the book, Alix, which I think is ridiculous. I had friends growing up who spelled Alex with an I, and so I'm pretty sure you can still pronounce that Alex. But throughout the entire book, she has to be saving others. And again, it's kind of this saving herself, like she validates herself by saving and rescuing others. She has to rescue Amira, who's just so naive, so vulnerable, doesn't have a social media presence. She kind of starts to formulate this plan for how she can grow her into this confident young woman and make her successful. And then even if you see Alix's like friends that come in from the city, they also have that same survival complex. They can't just let people be. They have to be the ones fixing everyone. And you see that a lot of maybe like the overseas adoption kind of complex, where it's the idea of, you see these women going over and bringing back babies from Africa and it's, I'm saving this child. You kind of get that same sense out of Amira and also a little bit, but I think that the on rather than Kelly really did a good job to highlight this really nuanced form of racism that we typically don't talk about, but that does also really tend to come up sort of stereotypically in white women as it's my job to go and help the unfortunate and to do kind of my good community service to help raise this young woman into the confident, successful woman that she can be. There was something else that I was going to say after that, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. There's something else, but and I think, I don't know, I lost my thought.
And I hope now that you just use whatever sponge you want to, as much as you want to, and that if you're still eating dirt, it's because it's, it's a personal choice. No one's like making you do it or anything. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you talked about there, and you really hinted at. I'd like to see your babysitting diaries, the secret babysitting diaries that you hinted at. But yeah, no, you bring up a lot of really interesting points that I'm sure will spark some more conversation here. And I like every time one Caitlin raises her hand, we got to get another Caitlin. Caitlin Cohn, talk to us. You guys do that. You intentionally do that, don't you? Caitlin Cohn.
Yes, I'm just following her. No, I can't even tell what the order is because I just appear at the top of the list when I raise my hand. So I have no idea. So my babysitting story is when I was 14 years old, I was babysitting a couple kids with a couple of friends, and one of the children was 10, and he weighed more than I did, and he pinned me down at one point. I just sort of got stuck there. So that was kind of an upsetting babysitting experience. So don't babysit people that are bigger than you are, I guess is the lesson I learned from that experience. And then this is a trivial aside before my main point. So my daughter I call her Mira. I mean, her name's Miriam, but in the last 2 months, I've read 2 books with Mira as the main character. So that's sort of strange because I've never seen that anywhere before these 2 books that I read. But I have been thinking a lot about Kelly and Kelly's perspective on Alex or Alix and his relationship with her in high school, and then his really controlling reaction when he finds out that that's who Mira works for. Because even though like Alix is kind of an awful human being, he also tells Amira what to do in a way that I found really disturbing. And that he's like, she's not a good person. And like, he hasn't seen this woman in like 16 years. And it's possible that she has remained very similar. It's possible that she changed. And I also kind of understand that knee-jerk reaction to the people that have done like shitty things to us in the past. But I also I'm around Kelly's age. And I feel like I'm kind of at a point now where I can look back at people that were awful to me at that period of my life and be like, oh, like they had their own things going on. And like, I don't know what they were going through. And I have a lot more empathy for them now than I did when I was 17 and they did those shitty things. And so I just found it that he was kind of a man child. It's like, yes, he was really into her. And yes, he wanted to do the right thing, but his like, and he did ultimately respect her desire to not share the video. So he wasn't like completely despicable or anything, but it's just like, he wasn't able to put himself in her shoes and think like, okay, this is her job. Like she loves that child. She's attached to that child. And like for her to quit is a bigger deal and more complicated than just like, Alex is really problematic. And of course she's aware that Alex is really problematic. This is not like something that she hasn't figured out on her own. But I just, I felt that Kelly was very well depicted and well developed. And I think I liked what Craig said earlier in the chat about how we got to see him develop more through Amira's eyes, and as opposed to having him have his own perspective. And I really appreciated that. And then one last thing to your question, Jeff, have I ever heard people use like racial slurs in casual conversation? And one thing that really sticks out to me is when I was in college, there was a girl that I knew that used the word Jew as an insult, like to Jew someone as in to like be cheap. And like, you know, I didn't practice back then, but like, you know, my dad's Jewish, like I grew up, like that's my culture. And I remember like calling her out on it and she was just like, oh, it's not a big deal. And me just kind of being like, but to me it is a big deal, right? And like, I don't feel like I ever reached a conclusion with her, but that really like changed my opinion of this person.
Yeah, you know, it's something that to me it's just so like it's so grating and out of place now, and it's so shocking that you know, when I was much younger, there were people that talked like that. You know, people use the word gay, you know, for like saying something wasn't cool, you know, or they would say things like that, and we didn't call someone out on those things back then. You know, it was just the way some people talk. But like now, if you hear stuff like that, it's so grating. And I think that one of the only good things is that, at least I know, like with my children, you know, it would be so out of place for them to hear this or to have anyone talk like that. You know, it doesn't happen, at least as far as I know, with the people that I see them hanging out with and the way that they talk and stuff like that. But yeah, well, I'm sorry that you experienced that, and I'm glad that you bring up the savior idea. And I think it's happening in the chat too. We're talking about how it's interesting that both Alix and Kelly, I think, you know, they want to use Amira for their own, you know, they're trying to make, you know, why does Kelly want to share the video? Why does she want that video shared? It's not for her. It's not going to be better for her if that video is shared. You know, he shot it. He's part of it. He wants, you know, to save her in some way. And, you know, and they're just using her. And I think in that way, you know, it's, you know, should just, you know, two sides of it. And for a while you might be picking, are you on one or the other? And then you look like her, you realize neither of them are right. And neither of them are people that you want to spend your time with. But I'm happy to see a lot of hands. So Kristen Bolden, may I unmute you? Can you talk to us, Kristen?
You bet. Hello, everybody. I finished this at the same time as whoever said she finished at 6:59. I finished just like in the nick of time. I finished it. And I thought it was great. This was a thumping good read. I thought this book was really well written, that this woman does a great job with plot and with character, that I feel like so often with books that we have to choose one or we have to emphasize the other. Both with plot and character, she did such a good job that I always was wanting to turn pages. I was always wanting to get back to the book, and I really just enjoyed the complexity of all the characters in this. For a long time while I was reading it, it really bothered me that Kelly hadn't figured out who Alix was, and also that his text name in Zara's or Amira's phone was Keenan and Kel. And so that didn't make sense to me. All of that felt a little bit contrived to me, because I thought, wait a minute, this dude has never Googled his high school girlfriend. This, she's semi-famous with her whole Let Her Speak company, and she's going to get a book, and he has no idea. And for a while that really felt contrived to me, until I finally realized that by changing her name, by getting married and then switching from the Alex to Alix, that she could effectively have disappeared on the internet. And as a dude, he's not going to be so aware of women who have careers based on writing letters. So that bugged me for a while, but I still don't have a great answer to the question of why his phone came up as Keenan and Kel on Amira's phone. Anybody?
Well, it's Kenan Thompson and Kel. It was a show. There was an old sitcom with African American stars called Kenan and Kel.
Okay.
That's what it's a reference to. So
Okay.
it's another way of him probably trying to be like, look how down I am with
Another
Black people,
cultural appropriation.
because I'm like the Kel and the Kenan and Kel here. Because Kenan is Kenan Thompson from Saturday Night Live.
Wait, oh, okay.
The longest running cast. Yeah, it's an old show. I never really watched it, so I think it was big in the
That was
90s.
the Nickelodeon show that came out, but I thought that was the name she had given him on her phone.
Right.
See, that's
That was
that's
why
right.
it was confusing.
Yeah, she probably
But I
assigned
knew the
that
show.
name. It would have been her contacts, right? She probably
Okay.
assigned that name.
No, because he took her phone on the train or bus, whatever it was, and he put it in there for her.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, but either way, it is a Nickelodeon show. I think they worked at a fast food place. Am I right?
Okay.
I've seen some pictures. Anyone watch Kenan and Kel that can speak to this? And maybe
Yes, it's
why
amazing.
it would be.
Kenan and Kel was like the show of my childhood. Gerd
Okay.
Burger, the best movie ever.
Hmm.
It's amazing. Kenan's never done as good of work since, and I love him on SNL, but it's just not the same.
I do love Kenan. Okay, I'll have to check it out. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad it was a big show for you. Okay. So, Kristen, does that help with that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So it's just one other layer of cultural appropriation if he did it, or, the sort of murkiness if she did it. And then, I like it. It works. Like I said, the author did a really good job of plotting things and how things unfolded and making sure that things fell into place. What I really liked too was how every character was nuanced, that Amira and Briar were obviously the stars, right? That they were great and they were the ones. And I really liked how Amira's insecurity made sense within her character for why she wouldn't want to have the video published, why she didn't have an online presence and all of that. One of the things I would challenge everybody with this is that, of course, Alix is the villain, right? But I think that Kiley Reid wrote her with some nuance and enough nuance that we can see. And what I love about this book is that in another, say, white author's hand, she would come off as better than she does here, because she's got that white savior and cultural appropriation thing that she's got going on, but she still has, a lot of trauma coming up. Like her story of Kelly and people invading her house on the night she lost her virginity and she thinks somebody else, he told her, that's traumatizing. Her parents who didn't care for her, who like switched up everything, and having to sort of play out the end of your high school as a social pariah, that's traumatizing. So I thought that, again, like all the characterizations made sense, and that's what I really appreciated about it. So I was happy to see how the Kelly dynamic played out. I liked how it was revealed more at the end, and I really appreciated how both Kelly and Alix were both wrong and right. They were right about each other, and they were wrong in how they leveraged it to Amira. And so they were being selfish. They were wanting something for themselves out of Amira. And so I thought that really spoke well to just taking a snapshot of how complicated race is among all the people, because I, for one, read this and I could see Karen aspect in myself, right? That I'm Karen, and so I need to read myself for the same kind of, borderline ridiculousness that Alix was practicing at different times. And then realize, like, yeah, she was bad in some ways, but she was decent in others. I mean, she could have been a better person had she let Amira help her be a better person. And I liked how Amira came around to that too. She's like, oh yeah, I bought a couch, and I wanted to text her and say, I bought a couch, and she was right about the couch too. So the fact that they were able to all be a little nuanced and no one was entirely evil, I appreciated, and I really valued how this is a book about this coming from a voice of a person of color. So it's sort of like Celeste Ng's Little Fires Everywhere, where you get the incisive skewering and nuance that you wouldn't get from a different perspective. And we really do need so many different authors with different perspectives writing these books, so that we're not all reading all white men, all white women, all, people from the same thing. So I really loved how this was a different voice, different perspective, and how well it was done.
I agree with you completely, especially about the nuance of Alix and how, it's on the surface, it would take a while for someone to know her for these things to reveal themselves, or, no one's going to see her and think she's racist, right up top, or call her that. This is someone who works for the Hillary campaign or supports Hillary. This is, someone who listens to NPR, all these things. There's no way, that anyone's going to be like, oh, that person's racist or whatever. It's just, it's not a stereotypical character, but this is someone we know. This is someone that maybe we are really close to, or maybe it's us in a way that we don't even know the layers, the levels to which, we can offend. And it's constantly having to check yourself. It's that white liberal guilt that we have to take it to the next level, where, oh, well, no one on the surface, I'm not racist, but then there's just things you do in everyday life that, you don't know. And it's that actually working on it. It's that constantly working on it. So yeah, really great. Amy Dunker, may I unmute you? Are you with us?
I am. So I recently finished the book like an hour ago as well. And I wish I had time to listen to it in advance so that I could contemplate it more. But I also forget really fast. So it's a blessing in disguise. I never read about the books before I actually start reading them. I just purchase it and start reading. Actually listening. I did the Alix Audible. And so I didn't know exactly what I was getting into. And so at first I thought, oh, it's this, comparing of two ages, this younger girl with this, mother, and how they wish they were, at the age of the other person. But that quickly went away, and I couldn't let go of the idea of maturity and what maturity means, and how people base maturity on what you have or what you're doing or how you talk. It's not necessarily about what's going on in your head. And so I was thinking that I really believe that the main character was the most mature person there, but a lot of people wouldn't know it because our definition of maturity, she didn't meet. She didn't want her business out there. She didn't need that presence because she didn't need other people's opinions of her and what she was doing. With her choice of job, she did what made her happy. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about prestige. And it annoyed me, all these people that came into her life and tried to make her life better, but she was happy with her life. We all don't have to make $1 million, thank goodness. She just wanted to be happy, and taking care of Brian made her happy. And, she wasn't feeling a lot of pressure to go find another job. She wasn't feeling poor. She wasn't feeling rich. She just wanted to be happy. And, she talked about her highest paying job was $18 an hour. And I thought, God, I would just love that contentment. Oh, and at the very end, with this interview, what sealed the deal is that she didn't just tell this woman off in front of all these people. She just let it go. I forget exactly how she worded it, but she was like, it's not going to do any good. She is who she is. And that she can process that and think through that is much more mature than any other character in the book. I was even upset with Alixa's friend, who happened to share the same color as the main character. I can't think of her name. Alina? Yeah. Amira, thank you. I was disappointed that she was like, oh, let me tell you how to be more mature, ultimately. Let me tell you what to do and what not to do. And, I just thought, God, leave the woman alone. She's happy. So few of us are happy because we're constantly trying to be better than the Joneses. Just let her be happy. She's happy. That's what I had to say.
Happy. Thanks for your comments. Awesome. Cheers. Rachel Geiser, are you with us? Talk to us.
Yeah. Hi. I was going to share a babysitting story where the kid called 911 on me because I made lunch and wasn't making pizza. So I'll rephrase for that. But the kid in a kettle thing, I do think it was probably Amira because she would have gone in and changed it anyway. But because I know with a lot of my friends and that boyfriends have nicknames until they're more serious. Like I had one friend that called the guy she was dating, the postman, because he worked for the postal service for a very long time until I got a little more serious. And so I don't know. I don't think that's unusual. I think especially with her friends and the way they talked about each other's boyfriends, that would be something that would be okay. I have a friend that code words all over her phone, so I think that's normal. But besides echoing, I don't want to echo what everybody else said. Especially like I love having the insufferable Kelly douchebag look at me woke person in there. I just have to repeat that, but it's so wonderful to have that character in there because it just doesn't get put up enough. But something else that I thought that was really nice and subtle about the book was the fact that you got to see people experience a lot of these. And then another group is trying to assume or guess at what that person was thinking or why they said that or why they did that. And that happened a lot in the book. And the assumptions sometimes were way off, but sometimes they were just slightly off. And I just want to go like shake the book and go, no, guys, that's not why they did that, or that's not why they thought that. But that's life, I just thought that was a really, really interesting take on how to like have people like try to assume people's motivations for things, try to assume what other people are thinking and getting it wrong, but not in like a huge dramatic soap opera way, but like just in a real way that like things were slightly off and like misunderstanding something slightly that kind of got out of control but wasn't intended that way, but sometimes it was intended that way. I just thought that was interesting and a nice little take where it felt very real the way she put it in there instead of over the top. And also the echo chamber that friends can be, whatever her name is, Alex, whatever, like her calling her friends. I mean, it was already annoying to begin with, but like you can really feel like how I've had these girlfriend gab sessions where it's like, well, what do you think about this? And it's not always about a boy, it's about a situation, and it's like them like confirming your suspicions, but everybody's way off, and just like echoing exactly what you want to hear instead of it being the truth, or maybe challenging you a little bit to say, hey, maybe you're wrong about this, and maybe that's not the right thing to have done. And I thought that was really great too. It's so real. Like that happens, and that causes problems because people just don't understand that. And then like you said, I like that Amira didn't have this big miraculous job that came. I like that she felt comfort and the relief of insurance and that she found what she needed. It didn't have to be a miracle ending. I just thought that was also real too. So I just found this book to be so lifelike and wonderful and not over the top and just nice to read. So I got.
Awesome. So it wasn't a totally dark, depressing, Jeff picks the darkest, depressing books read. Thank you for finding some humanity and something light and life affirming in it, Rachel. Good to see you again. Looks like you have a nice spot out there too. So next time you can have a couple friends around you. It'll be nice. All right, Sue, are you still with us? Sue, can I unmute you? Can you talk to us, Sue?
Here I am. So I wanted to say that I came to this book, I listened to it right after reading How to Be an Anti-Racist. And so in some ways, it was interesting to see more of a kind of academic look at racism and then contrasted with kind of the novelized situation. But she did such a good job of the layering of different sorts of racism, both among white people and people of color. Because in the How to Be an Anti-Racist, that's a big point, is racism just isn't just white people, that all people have some racist ideas. So that was intriguing. The part of the book that didn't feel right to me was the end when they're doing the interview, and I get that, you know, Amira could kind of figure out what she was going to do, and maybe had even, that was one of the scenarios before Zara finds out what's going on. So she could kind of think through that pretty quickly and respond quickly. The whole thing about Zara acting up seemed like that was just kind of far-fetched and out of character. Not for Zara, but for Amira. It's like, you know, this is the friend that was with me at the market that night, but it just kind of seemed over the top. But overall, I really enjoyed the book. I think it was a good, wonderful first novel. Like Pete said, I can't wait to kind of see where she goes in her career. And I am the proud youngest sister of a Karen. My oldest sister is Karen, and she is the sweetest person on the face of the earth. So I think we need to maybe change that to be Alix or something.
Yeah. Thanks, Sue. You know, I know what you mean about sort of the end reaction from Zara or Zara. And I thought part of it was intentionally over the top as a distraction. I thought maybe that was part of the plan, right? So that she could get out of there without having to be confronted, you know, get your stuff and get out of there while I make the big scene. You know, she was saying stuff like, you know, she was making it really political and was almost, it seemed exaggerated. I mean, not that there weren't some, you know, important points that she was making, but it was like, I got the camera on me now, so I'm gonna go over the top. You know, she's like standing up and doing this, and I thought it was like a big show, a big distraction, and also sort of comic relief in a way. Like imagining her doing it sort of over the top, and I thought I could see this as a scene and being a pretty funny character taking this. You know, like, oh, I got a chance. I got something. Yeah, just hold on. No, I'll distract her. It'll be fine. And then you don't know what she's going to do. And then she does something so crazy that you're like, oh, you know, and even Amira's embarrassed by it. Like it was just, you know, too much. Because it's definitely not something Amira would have done. But I think it was to, you know, steal focus and let her get out of there. And she almost escapes without having the confrontation. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you tell Karen to hang in there.
It will.
Thanks, Sue. All right, Gretchen. I'm unmuting you, Gretchen. Talk to us.
Hi. So one thing about the presence on social media or the lack thereof, I find it interesting that my youngest son, who just turned 21, who is very social and has a lot of friends, is really turned off by social media. I don't know if it's because there's too much other crap on there that's not really social. It's more, you know, political and designed to try to influence, or if it's just because, you know, old people like me are on it, or what the deal is. But and he has a lot of friends too who are very anti-social media. So that might just be a commentary on a younger generation that we don't understand as well. That they just, I mean, he has a phone, he texts, he does that, but he just doesn't want to have a presence on social media because he finds it to be annoying, as he says. So that's one thing. The second thing, I really enjoyed this book. It was so uncomfortable to listen to, but also very, very entertaining. And it was kind of like watching, a train wreck. You knew it was going to happen, and it just kind of kept going. But it was written so well that it was very entertaining to listen to. And I agree that I think all of these characters really had a lot of layers to them. I think Alix did have some things that were very sympathetic about her, just with the way that she was kind of thrown into being rich in this really gaudy, inappropriate way. And her family was not terribly supportive of her, and her relationship with the maid that they hired. I think she just didn't have a lot of great education, which is maybe not terribly dissimilar than a lot of the rest of us too. But I think that there were some things that were definitely sympathetic about her. And, it was fun watching that relationship between Amira and the little girl whose name escapes me now. Chemo brain, sorry. But yeah, that was really delightful to watch, how she just really appreciated her questions and her personality in a way that her mom couldn't do.
One of the points I read Kiley Reid talking about, and I didn't really pick up on this as much until after reading this, but she was saying she really wanted to focus on how Amira realizes that Alix is much closer to the baby, to the younger girl, and has a strong, and is almost doing that this one is the one that's closer to me, and I don't know how to deal with the other one as much, and was almost like losing her already, even though she's not that old, she's a toddler, but seeing that she just doesn't know how to connect with her as much, and she would just let her, Amira was much better with her, and she was better with her baby. And so there was sadness that then she said that she wanted to show how Amira could see this, and then wanted to, make sure to fill in to be, that person for, what's her name again? The older girl.
Briar.
No, yeah, there you go, Briar. Yeah, but it's contagious. We're all getting it. So Gretchen, hope you're feeling okay. Hope you're doing it. It's great to see you.
Yeah, I had a great cocktail today at the Maple Grove Cancer Center. 0 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend.
All right, so it's not like anything good at Marvel Bar used to make or anything.
No.
You don't recommend this one, okay?
No, but I only have 2 more left, so.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yep.
All right. Well, great to see you, and whatever it takes for you to be with us like this, thank you. VS, I got to tell you, I don't remember what the initials are for. VS, I'm unmuting you. It's a mystery person again. I remember you, but remind me, who's VS? Are you here?
Yeah, I think I unmuted now. Yes, hello. This is my first time joining you. I was very happy to see your group. I found you on Twitter and decided to join. I just read this book. The V stands for VIA. I live in New York, in a suburb of the city. I did live in Manhattan many years. So kind of the personality of Alix is somewhat familiar to me. I did enjoy this book very, very much. I zipped right through it. I thought the dialogue was really interesting and fun, especially the dialogue with Amira and her friends. I just really enjoyed it. I would have to say, as far as the characters are concerned, Alix, although I do agree there were some sympathetic aspects of her character, I just tended to dislike her more and more throughout the book, to the point where I almost felt that she was a little bit borderline on being a caricature than a character, for the purpose of the satirical aspects of the book, the white liberal wokeness and so forth, because she was so self-absorbed and superficial, and every interaction that she had with other people, it was all about her. She didn't listen, and it was all about her and her virtue signaling and so forth. So I guess what really tipped the scale for me and my dislike for her was when she ran out of the house and left the baby in the house. How could you do that? Oh my goodness. She forgot everything. She got so obsessed with Amira and the whole thing with Kelly that she just became, she couldn't even perform her work, and she was also ignoring her child, both children. So anyway, I felt that, I didn't really like her very much, but I saw the point in her character. I thought it was excellently done, the way the author pointed out that, you can think that you're not racist, but this constant absorption on how you're showing it is not necessarily the greatest behavior. The character I liked the most, I loved Amira. I thought she was very real to me. I have two of my own daughters that are 29 and 30. One of my daughters is totally off of social media, so that didn't strike me as odd. That there is a group of young people who just do not do that. What I liked about her also, what someone else mentioned, I felt that she was very mature in a way, more mature than the other characters in the book, in really recognizing that there was value to loving this child and taking care of the child, and she got a lot out of it. As far as she was even regretting that she would have to move on to something more to get her a better job and benefits, because she just really grew attached to the child. So I really enjoyed it. I know I had some other things, but I'll let you move on to someone else.
And excited that you found us on Twitter and joined us from New York. So I hope we see you again. And if you think of something else, raise your hand or put it in the chat if you want. But thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Rebecca, have you been sketching this whole time?
I have. It's kind of a watercolor theme today, so I'll share it later when it's more complete. I'm going to use a loaded term here. Alix thought of Amira, in my mind, as a possession. I think Alix judged her own worth by what she had, including her children. And by the way, I do want to say Briar is one of the most unique characters, and I would love to see a story about Briar growing up, hopefully not too damaged growing up in that family household, but where might she have gone, and could she find Amira at some point later on in their life? That would be so cool. But back to Alix and how she was obsessed with Amira's physical characteristics, the way she looked, the way her hair, and I know that's commonly it's a microaggression that happens quite often against African American people. But I just I agree with Via that Alix's character almost slid into caricature because she seemed to have all the things. I mean, I don't feel like there was a genuine emotion except her fear of her being exposed. I mean, that she lived her life in fear. And so she had to accumulate all the things, writing letters and asking for it, finding approval from all of her friends and all of her social group on what was appropriate and what wasn't, while seeming to poo-poo the importance of it. I mean, it's a lot of things, but, and Amira didn't care about things in near the same way. And I think that was, I don't think she was the opposite of, I think she wanted to do something with her life, but she wasn't going to settle, and she wasn't going to let someone else dictate what that was. And I thought that, again, back to the maturity question, it was an incredible mature reaction. And I think I have great hope for her. But that whole relationship, I'm sorry, was just fucked up. And I am glad that it was brought to our attention, and we aren't allowed to feel comfortable one way or another. I felt uncomfortable so many times realizing that some of those same thoughts had passed through my mind, and I think that's the point. I hope we all saw each other a little bit in Alix and a little bit in Amira, And from that, we can hopefully understand ourselves better and other people around us as well. So great job. The author did a great job.
Rebecca, and as if you don't know what we were hinting at, Rebecca does a sketch note for all of our discussions, and they're fantastic. It kind of encapsulates some of the points that we talked about, and she does some illustration. They're absolutely beautiful. She shares them with us on social media after the event, and then I reshare. So looking forward to seeing the watercolors for this one, or the theme that you're going with here. So if you want to see past ones, they're on our Twitter or Instagram or the Books and Bars Facebook, or at R.A. Moss is her handle on Instagram. At R.A. Moss is Rebecca. That's M-O-S-S. So we got Rebecca. Now we got to go to Becca. I love it when I like when someone raises their hand. They go, you know what? That's my name. I'm going to raise my hand too. So Becca, I just hope there's a Jeff co-host that's coming up soon. Becca, are you with us? Talk to us.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of going to follow up a little bit on some of the stuff Rebecca was talking about and what I think it was Amy was saying earlier. I'm curious about how people felt about where Amira landed career-wise at the end, you know, because there was so much of her trying to figure out where she was going, and everyone else was having a purpose, and her boyfriend's got this fancy job making lots of money, and, you know, but what it seemed like was she was just kind of looking to have enough. You know, she just wanted enough to be comfortable, some health insurance, kind of the basics, and it was kind of got back to that idea of like, I just want to be happy. And I feel like, I wonder if the author was trying to say something about this, but there's so much pressure nowadays. I feel that you have to have a purpose and this really driven career that leads your whole life. And I hear even my teenage son talking about that when, you know, it's kind of like what happened in the days of, you know, maybe it's okay to just have a job that gives me enough and gives me the basics and extra money to go to Mexico and do some of these fun things. But just that lets me be happy and live my life, and I can come home at the end of the day and go out with my friends, and it doesn't have to be this high pressured intense purpose to my life. Even if you compare it to Alix, she kind of had that, but it didn't seem to make her happy, because like people were saying, she wasn't, whether it was motherhood or her career that she had all this attention and notoriety for, she didn't even seem to really enjoy it that much. I didn't feel like, even though she was making a lot of money and had the fancy house, that she really enjoyed what she was doing. So I don't know, it just gave me a lot of thoughts about, you know, the whole idea of choosing a career and what is your point in being here and your purpose in life. I don't know, that's my 2 cents. And Jeff, I finished it before book club this time. Super proud of myself. So that was my big win. This was a fun book.
Can you speak to did you feel, I mean, the extra time that you had from the point at which you finished until leading up to Books of Ours, wasn't that just really good time for you?
I didn't know what to do with myself, because I'm like, do I start another book? And I'm already ahead because I read Educated last year. So I actually have a whole month now to read whatever I want and not just what's on your list. So bonus.
Okay. So yes, I have my list through November. And if you, like I said, if you go to the bookshop, you can also see a pretty good list of possible 2021 ideas. So if you're bored and you want to, you know, buy another book or something, you want to read ahead, those are some ideas. Otherwise, I know sometimes if you read too far ahead, it is tough for the discussion, tough to remember, and you got to do something to refresh it. But, you know, I just think, I'm just glad that you finished it and that there was nothing spoiled for you. And I'm so happy that you read Educated already. And so Becca, I'm counting on seeing you on August 26th when we discuss Educated. So thank you. Catherine Young, representing the Friends of the St. Paul Library. Are you with us, Catherine? Talk to us.
I am here. Hello. So I work for the Friends of the St. Paul Public Library. And I do want to plug one thing before I talk about the book, because I'm feeling people are not going to like me after I talk about the book. So we have the Minnesota Book Awards judging is now open. So we're super lucky that this year and the past year we were able to get federal funding to give stipends for the judging. So if you want to be a judge for the Book Awards, there is a $350 stipend that comes along with that. And, you know, we're all in what's happening right now. So if you got some time to read some books, we'd love to have you apply. So you are our people right here. And if you go to thefriends.org/judge, that's where you can learn more info.
I'm putting that in the chat right now. Thefriends.org/judge.
Yep.
Judge. Okay.
Oh, and
Not Judge
also-
Reinhold? Not
Also-
judge, jury, and executioner?
Also, if you know people that are more in the outer areas of the state that maybe would never have considered being a judge because they're like, well, I can't take off time to drive to the Twin Cities, stuff like that. It's all going to be via Zoom this year. So if you know people that are in, farther out areas, like they would be a great judge, please send them over there. We definitely want to have a range of people from all around the state. So.
You say things that you think people are gonna not like you for, which that's not true. All opinions are welcome. Can I ask you, and we didn't plan this ahead of time, are you talking at all about Opus and Olives and what's happening with that this year?
So they're going to mention that probably in next Books and Bars.
Okay.
but Opus and Olives is coming up, so stay tuned. We have more info, but that will be a digital event this year, so it's exciting. Okay, yeah.
I'm excited. The little thing I might know, I'm excited about, but I
We
can't
got
say
some
anything.
big names, so y'all are going to be really excited. There's some big names.
We have that to look forward to. Maybe at the next event, we can talk about that next month. But go ahead with your question or comment about the book.
So for me, I was like, the beginning just got to me. It was just such a unique beginning, and I was like, oh, she's a badass. I'm so excited. Like, it's so great to follow her journey. I'm really excited. But then all the way through, I felt like the train wreck everybody was talking about that they were watching, I felt a little pandered to. I felt like every coincidence was set up to like make that thing happen. I wasn't super surprised when the coincidences happened. I was like, oh, so he's going to be the guy. Oh, so you're going to end up at Thanksgiving. Like, I just kept being like, really? Like that? I felt a little pandered to. This is why I am not a judge at the Book Awards. Anyways, there were just so many things that I didn't fully believe. Like, if the youngest child was her favorite, I don't buy that she would leave it. Even if she was enraged. I also didn't believe that she didn't know whose lockers were next to whose, because I can tell you as a teen, I know where everyone's locker was. And I also think there's a weird legal thing of having a kid clean out lockers. Like, I was like, I don't even think that would have happened when I was in high school. Yeah, and her snooping through the phone thing felt placed. And also, like, all the women going into a laundry room and talking, well, you're going to notice if half the people at Thanksgiving disappear. And also her talking in the room when they had already gotten there, like, did I do the right thing so that Zara could overhear it? I was like, you wouldn't say that when they arrived. Like, you would say that before they got there. I just felt like a lot of things were put in place to make it work. And I didn't feel that was as empowering as I wanted it to be. I wanted her to, like, figure this stuff out without it being, like, laid there. And I love Briar. I loved her. I loved her so much.
I can relate to your comments. In fact, as many of you know, oftentimes one of these is in my wife's ear, one of these is in my ear, leash in a hand, walking a dog, listening to the book, and then talking to each other, commenting on it. And there were a couple times where I think I said out loud, you know who's coming to Thanksgiving dinner, or I said, you know what's gonna, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's this kind of thing. And then, and she gets mad when sometimes I just, I don't want to ruin it, but I also want to make it known that I predicted this kind of thing. And that's the only person that I can say it to right now. So yeah, there's a couple things that I thought were a little bit like that were maybe convenient or kind of, I said it was almost like a reverse guess who's coming to dinner, because of course she wanted the African-American person at dinner, but the surprise was she brought a white guy that she's, you know what I mean? It was like, it was an interesting sort of reverse on the whole guess, if you ever seen the classic Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier. So anyway, so yeah, no one hates you for those comments. And there's been a lot of great, I cannot believe how many hands we have tonight, you guys. Thanks again for all the hands. This is great. Which leads me to Terry in Texas. I'm excited. Terry in Texas, talk to us.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I enjoyed the book. I think, Rebecca, I did kind of agree with your comments about some things not being very surprising, but overall I enjoyed it. I made myself some notes because I'm old and forgetful. After reading Such a Fun Age, I actually read, I don't know if you guys have heard of this one, My Grandmother's Hands, Resuma Minikim. And this is a much more serious book about racism. So I was very kind of surprised that a lot of the things that showed up in Such a Fun Age actually show up in this book. Like there's a chapter, I think it's called like The False Fragility of the White Body, which, you know, came up in this book as well. So going back to, my first thought was going back to Gretchen's comment. I think a couple of you said, I have a 22-year-old son who he is some on social media, but he's very, very, very cautious about what he does. I think part of that is because he is hoping for a career, you know, where he has to be more careful. He's studying forensic chemistry, you know, going for a PhD. He's worked at the DEA lab here in Dallas as an intern. So I think, you know, he doesn't want to have any social media presence that could possibly damage his, you know, chances of working for, you know, maybe an FBI or a CIA or a state crime lab in his future. So one of the things that, relating this back to Such a Fun Age, I thought maybe her point with not having Amira on social media was that really isn't a good place to fight or correct some of the racism in our country, because I think it's just such a, you know, you put something out there and everybody's like, rah, 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 and there's so many opinions, like it doesn't really help to solve the problem. And that was one of the points too in this grandmother's hand, was that you need to, each of us individually needs to get out there and do those small things, that learning what racism really is. It's not just about violence and, you know, lynching someone. It's about these small things that we do every day. So, you know, I kind of like that Amira didn't have the social media, because I thought that fit with not really being able to fix a problem through social media. So anyway, that was my point. And if you guys want something a little heavier and something that really addresses, you know, being white, this is a really good book. So thanks.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the recommendation. Ruthie, are you still with us? Can I unmute you?
Yes, hi. To kind of go off of what you were just saying, Terry, the whole time reading this book, I felt kind of like frustrated that Amira wasn't doing more or speaking out louder or making a statement, I guess. But the more I think about that and how she actually was the most mentally like stable and mature and smart character, and how she didn't let anyone's opinions affect her own the whole time, like how maybe that approach really is the more powerful approach. But it was just interesting to kind of note how I think typically in books like this, we're waiting for like a powerful moment, or like someone to be a badass, or just like a statement, I guess, like especially in this cultural movement that we're in right now. I kept waiting for like her to like make a wave, you know, but she did in her own way. And it took me a really long time to accept that was okay, and not be frustrated with it. But anyway, I'd be curious to know if anyone else felt that way as they were reading through.
Thanks, Ruthie. If anyone else felt that way, feel free to chime in. I know I kind of felt like it wasn't going to be like the big thing. I mean, in maybe in the way that when her friend Zara, you know, we mentioned that almost seemed over the top, like that sort of action, like things were in a much more, I don't want to say realistic, but like subdued or like at a certain level, but there wasn't that. I mean, maybe some of the biggest, you know, events or worst things that happened were the whole idea of the revelation of that Alex Alix knew this the whole time, you know, and had been lying this whole time. So that makes you actually, whatever you thought of her, as I think it, you know, your opinion of her might have been going down, but then it, you know, that really, I think, takes it down. And that was kind of a big thing, you know, whereas a lot of the actions from characters aren't necessarily like unforgivable or like the big thing that you cannot believe they did. It was in some ways maybe more realistic in that sense. I don't know if I'm exactly speaking to what you're getting at or what you mean there, but I don't know. That's just maybe my take on it. I see Pete's back, but Pete, before I want to make sure, Pete, I have a couple people that I don't think have had a chance yet. Charmaine Wild has not had a chance yet. So Charmaine, I'm going with you right now. Talk to us, Charmaine.
Hi, so this is my second time joining, and I'm down in Texas, and I am still pregnant. I joined for the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and then I follow, and I actually read this book back in June. So,
and you have like 7.5 kids, right? I mean, like 5, right?
Yeah, I do. This is number 5, but man, I'm so ready to be done in August in Texas. But I just wanted to chime in and just comment on this book. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I did not like, and I refused to call her Alex. If I knew her in real life, I would call her Alex, and just she'd have to deal with it because that's her name. But I had a hard time, and I said this in the chat, that she just didn't really seem interested in anything in life or really be looking for what she wanted. But in a way, all the characters were in that middle zone. I feel like Kelly was that way too. He wasn't really sure what he wanted. And in a way, Amira was still trying to figure that out. But the ending is what I wanted to mention, in that I loved how Amira ended up, because she was the most go with the flow, let things happen kind of person. And when she sees Kelly at the farmer's market at the end, like, I want to go up to Kelly's girlfriend and be like, let me tell you about this book, Such a Fun Age, in which your boyfriend is, and like, I wanted to just pull that cover off her eyes, because I just felt like, man, some people never change. And here he is at the market with somebody else. And I question the genuine feelings he has for this other girl, because he seems to have had an agenda for quite some time. And then even with Alex, I don't feel like she ends up in a good place too. So I liked that the book didn't have everybody happy endings and characters change, because I don't think that's realistic. But I was very happy with how Amira's life progressed and unfolded, because it seemed very good. Like, if you're just a good person and you're not out with an agenda, it works. Your life can work out. So those are my thoughts.
And yeah, congratulations and good luck with everything. Hopefully the next time we talk to you, you're, I don't know, maybe more comfortable. Let's put it that way. We'll see. Although, who knows?
I do intend to come back. I did read Educated, and so I'm excited. I'm following on Facebook what you have coming up and trying to stay up with it, because this is a really fun group. And I thank you again for letting me join.
Have you, Charmaine? And I don't know if you saw, but in the chat, Liz Addison gave you an oofta. Now, if you're not from here, or maybe you don't know what that means, but that's pretty great, for a Texas person to get an oofta from an Addison in Edina. That's impressive. So take it and run with it. All right, Pete, I'm unmuting you. You're still with us, Pete? Talk to us.
Yes, still here. And this was, I loved everyone's comments.
I'm going to chime in here.
Oh.
Just kidding. I'm just showing you that I can unmute myself.
See, you did it. And Carolyn, we haven't,
You go first.
You should go before Pete.
I know. That's why I unmuted myself. Sorry.
At least he's not in the Overlook Hotel again. He's in a much.
Oh my God, I know. I'm in this dining room, and he's God knows where. So.
Wait, you're both in the same. You're in the same house, though, right?
Oh yeah, I can hear him when he talks. He's just up there.
I'm sorry I missed you, Carolyn. Thanks for jumping in. This is very exciting.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I just I wondered, they never really talked about why the title was Such a Fun Age, right? I mean, it's just kind of up to our interpretation, right? Like, is it Briar? She's, 3, oh, it's such a fun age or whatever. And then, or, Amira, is she just such a fun age, 25? But there's all the subtext, so like it's not really that fun, right? But then I read something on NPR, like an article that said, the other thing, that it was set in 2015, and that was also like, one could say we were a little bit innocent in 2015, and then and wasn't that such a fun age? But there's all this undercurrent stuff still working, this like putrid undercurrent of racism and sexism and all of that. And so I thought that was really a cool take on another interpretation of such a fun age. We're a little innocent there, but there's still sort of this darkness underneath. So, but I wonder what other people thought.
I brought it up in the chat, and there were some responses to it. I was trying to find it. Someone had a pretty good response talking about how each of the ages, it might have been Charmaine actually. It's in the chat. I brought it up, and somebody answered to it. It might have been Charmaine. She talked about how each of those ages, there's certain aspects of them. Which age are you talking about? Well, that's the one you're in. I always think of it as like when you have kids. You think about like, oh, this age. Oh, I wish I could stay this age forever. Or then you get to the next one, and you're like, oh, this age is better even. I'm glad. I don't know. Like, and at least my own personal experience, there's a lot of ages where I look now and I see someone with younger kids and I go, oh, I remember that. That was hard. I'm glad we don't have to do that part anymore. Like I went to Costco for the first time in like years, and they were like, what brought you back? And I said, I don't know, but like once my kids got out of diapers, I just felt like I needed like all this stuff. But now they're teenagers and they eat so much that I have to grocery shop like twice a week otherwise and have it delivered. Like I need to buy things in bulk for the amount of food that's being eaten in this house right now. So I went back to Costco and had to just buy like giant amounts of things. And so anyway, it's such a fun age. All right, Pete, your turn.
And thanks for keeping the line Q appropriate. But mine was kind of a technical question about if this is on YouTube, is there some way we could like, some of us have career consequences of, I mean, I like everybody here, but I just really wouldn't want necessarily being too public. I mean, I'm always going to be honest and I don't care. I'll stand up for who I am. But, if the man is shitty, so let's remember that when we go on YouTube.
Great point. Let me talk to you about this offline. Okay.
Okay.
We'll take this offline. I'll talk to you before anything else is done. Okay.
And I can help with the technical aspects, and if everyone can opt in and like stuff like that.
Thanks for that, Pete. I see Allison, a fresh hand. Allison, may I unmute you? Are you with us still?
Hello. So I love the conversation. I am so happy that she did not end up working for Alix or being with Kelly, because neither one of them deserved her. I love the part where she was, with her friends. Any of those conversations with friends, I just thought were so fun, and it reminded me, because it was like 4 girls and the personalities of who they are in the group, reminded me so much of Insecure. So Issa Rae, anything that she writes, I find is just amazing and fun. So that show, I think, it's on HBO. So I recommend Insecure. Another part that people have mentioned in this scene, they mentioned condoms and consent, and I was like, hell yes, a book that finally brings that stuff up, because I feel like it's glossed over a lot of times. And those sorts of things. I'm like, okay, I like that was in there. Another thing that I thought was interesting is how Amira felt more comfortable calling Peter instead of Mr. Chamberlain versus Alix. And she was like, I can't even say her name, so I'm just going to call her Mrs. Chamberlain, and that maybe why we never got close. But I was kind of like, so I wonder, and we know that the dad had his own learning areas where he needs to learn, right? How to be less racist or understanding white supremacy. But the fact that she just was more comfortable with him, I just kind of, I thought that was an interesting point because I feel like we think she's doing so much to be more woke, but really her husband who's saying these things online still has a better relationship with the person she's dying to connect with. So just put that out there.
Allison, some of it cut out for me, so I didn't get all of that, but I definitely got Issa Rae and Insecure, and I second that. That is a great show to watch. Highly recommend it. But yeah, your connection was a little fuzzy for me. So if you could actually, if there's something that you want to restate and put it in the chat, and we can make sure that we address it. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to deal with the tech issue here. But thank you. All right, Kara.
Hi, I think I got some of what you were saying, Allison, and people are talking about it in the chat, but I thought like Peter's like kind of foot in his mouth at the very beginning was like another really great thing to compare Kelly and Alex to. Alix? I definitely read it just as Alex the whole time in my head as I read the book because I didn't do audio. So, but like he's the type of like, that's the gaffe that someone would make that would like today get them quote unquote canceled. Like someone says something on social media and it's just like they're torn apart. And then you have people like Kelly and Alex who are not like necessarily better people, but they're like more savvy. And so they're not gonna like necessarily get torn apart as easily. So I just thought that was like an interesting thing that the author included that I thought like made a lot of sense. And then as to like why Amira felt more comfortable calling Peter, I think it's because she could just tell like he didn't have this like weird relationship to her. Like he just treated her like an employee. He was treating her normally. Like he didn't have these weird expectations of her and he didn't have any particular need for her to like him. And I think there's comfort in that, like knowing exactly where your boundaries are. Like she could trust her relationship with Peter. She didn't necessarily have to like him, but she knew where he was at. Whereas Alex wanting to blur the line between employer and friend, that like introduces a lot more vulnerabilities for an employee. So I thought that made a lot of sense. And then I also wanted to talk about the title. I definitely was like such a fun age in reference entirely to Amira and her experience as a person in her mid-20s, because that's always what people say when they find out that you're in your 20s. And, you know, I'm appreciating being in my 20s a lot, certainly, but I feel like I'm looking even more forward to my 30s. And it's just like it's just an age where there's a lot of pressure on you because you're, you know, still young, but you're becoming an adult, but like you're young, so it's like the fun part of your life. But like the way things are now for like my generation are so different than how it was for people in past generations. Like people are no longer starting into careers that are gonna like last them for the rest of their lives anymore, or even for like 5 years. So there's just like, I don't know, it's just like a thing where it's ironic, right? The title's Such a Fun Age, when for Amira, it's definitely improving as she gets older and like farther away from being younger, the things are getting better. And that's kind of how I feel about my 20s. Things are improving as I get older. I don't look back fondly on being younger.
Your 20s are getting hit with you know, a really tough time for a lot of people right now. But I hope you could still enjoy the rest of your 20s.
I'm enjoying them, but you know, I think it's good to like look forward.
Have goals, you know, but you know, enjoy what you have now too. All right, Caitlin Fellows, are you still with us, Caitlin?
Yeah. Spoiler, I think there are still a lot of pressures in your 30s. Just don't want to be a downer, but same. I was gonna kind of raise the question about Peter's kind of misstep on the news, and I was that question of kind of people's thoughts on why that incident wasn't fleshed out more. And then as I was listening to Kara, I kind of answered it for myself, and just thinking about how with Peter, you know, like that was, I mean, kind of a really blatant act of racism. And it's such a typical one, right? Where the not necessarily ill-intentioned individual makes a comment that is just not appropriate, but it's a gut reaction. And I think, as I was thinking about it, just kind of that question of like, okay, but why? Like, obviously that was a big deal for his career. It got the public reaction that it should have. It was definitely not a good thing, but then it's kind of over, and why? And I was thinking of it kind of in comparison to the type of racism that we see with Kelly and with Alex, and how I think the point with his was kind of that reaction. Like, he had that honest reaction of the flustered, like, it was wrong. I don't know why I did it. Like, I didn't mean to say that. Like, he kind of clammed up but had a reaction to it. And I mean, I don't know that we necessarily have concrete evidence or having any sort of like groundbreaking internal, you know, I don't know, just aha moment or whatever, and enlightenment. But he does have a moment where he's owning up to it, and he's saying like, oh yeah, that was me. I said that. I understand why I was wrong. Like, I don't know who did it. I shouldn't have done it. Like, whereas with Alex and Kelly, it's this sort of complete denial of recognition. And, you know, I think, you know, that's one of the things that this book does so well, is kind of show those layers of nuanced racism where, you know, we have to be not just examples in ourselves and in others, but looking at what type of responsibility are we taking for them. And so I was just going to raise that kind of question of like how other people felt about the fact that we really didn't see his incident fleshed out beyond kind of an instant. Then Kara kind of, I feel like, talked through a little bit too. But.
Was sort of underdeveloped. I actually was surprised at how much he faded into the background as it went on, because that was the other big incident that happened. It was, I mean, if it wasn't for that, then, you know, we wouldn't have had what happened in the supermarket. And then how it's kind of, you know, it's kind of forgotten and not really addressed, or at least, or how they felt more about it. She ends up, you know, fixating so much on Amira and Kelly that, I feel bad. The husband he's barely in it. Do we get, I forget, like by the end, do we have a sense, is she still with her husband even, you know? Cause I don't know if that relationship, you know, had what it takes to keep going. But it's a little interesting that they didn't focus more on that. Anyone else have anything? We've gone a little long, and I love all of the hands that were up tonight. This is so great. We meet again on the 26th for Educated by Tara Westover. It is a memoir. We haven't done a memoir in a while. And you've probably read a bit about it, but it's pretty fascinating. I think you'll enjoy the read and the discussion. So hopefully you can join us for that. I've also posted our books through November. So they're in the chat. I think you can save the chat. Otherwise, I can post the chat. And of course, I always post these on booksandbars.com, at booksandbars on Instagram, at booksandbars Twitter. We're on Facebook. And reach out with any questions, comments, suggestions. Please check out bookshop.org if you want to support us and get books instead of waiting for the library. That's cool too. You can even get audiobooks through them. It takes you to through another link, but I think it still reverts back and gives credit if you want to get an audiobook that way also. And thanks again, guys. If you have any other recommendations or anything, I'd love to hear them. And stay safe. Hopefully you voted. Hopefully things are going to start getting better. I don't know. But I miss you all. And every time I'm so happy. I have such a great time doing this. So thank you for being a big part of that and for giving me something really to look forward to during this time. So I hope you all, again, stay safe and we'll see you next time.